Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of sources, dig in, and really try to extract the most vital, insightful nuggets to make you instantly more informed, hopefully with just enough humor to keep you hooked along the way.
That's the goal.
Now, let's maybe paint a picture first. Imagine, say, a huge global shipping company suddenly unable to track its cargo. Chaos, right?
Oh, absolutely. Millions in lost goods, supply chains grinding to a halt, nightmare scenario.
Or think about a major healthcare provider. Their systems go down. What happens? Urgent patient care gets delayed for days.
And the impact is just immediate, isn't it? It's devastating. We're talking financial ruin, reputations destroyed.
Yeah, even threats to public safety in some cases. It's real.
And, it's scenarios like these, they're way too common in our interconnected world. But they aren't just like random digital bad luck.
Right.
Behind every single one of these events, there's always a story of risk, how it was identified, how it was managed, or maybe tragically, how it wasn't managed effectively.
That hidden battle happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. It's going on behind every system, every process we rely on every single day.
And that's precisely what we're plunging into today. This isn't just about the technical side of cybersecurity, although that's definitely part of it.
Sure, it plays a role.
But this deep dive is really about getting our heads around the core principles that protect anything of value in this information-rich world we live in. From your own personal digital stuff to the massive systems running global finance or critical infrastructure.
These concepts, they're pretty much universal.
Totally. And our insights today, they come straight from a really definitive guide in the field. It's called CRC All-in-One.
Yeah, that's a heavy hitter. It's the go-to for professionals getting certified in risk and information systems control.
Exactly. But our mission for you, the listener, is to kind of pull out those really potent nuggets of knowledge, cut through the jargon,
Slice through the complex stuff.
and deliver those aha moments. The goal is to leave you feeling well-informed, quickly, thoroughly, without feeling totally overwhelmed.
We want to turn what seems complicated into something you can actually grasp and maybe even use.
So what's the roadmap for this deep dive? Well, we're going to start by breaking down the fundamental goals of information security, the absolute bedrock.
The foundations.
Then we'll dissect risk itself, look at its anatomy, its core elements.
Get under the hood.
From there, we jump into the detective work. How do you actually find vulnerabilities? How do you craft those realistic what-if scenarios?
The practical side of things.
After that, we'll explore how organizations don't just spot danger, but how they, quantify it, put numbers on it, and then respond strategically.
Accept it. Avoid it. Fight back.
Right. Or maybe build these, formidable layers of defense. And finally, we'll wrap up with the crucial part, continuous monitoring. How do organizations keep watch?
Always vigilant.
Yeah, over this constantly shifting risk landscape. So by the time we're done, you should have this really powerful framework for thinking critically about risks. And not just in IT, but almost anywhere. Ready to unpack this?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's kick off with those foundational elements. The things security pros are fundamentally trying to achieve. It really boils down to 3 core goals, famously known as the CIA triad.
CIA, okay, not the agency.
No, definitely not the agency. It stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, you might sometimes see it written as AIC triad in some books or articles.
Okay, something.
Same concepts, just a different order. But the meaning is identical, and these aren't just, buzzwords. They're the absolute bedrock. Everything in information security is built on these 3 pillars. They form this kind of holistic defense strategy.
Okay, so CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability. Why are these 3 so critical? Let's peel that back a bit. Confidentiality. This seems like the obvious one, right? Keeping secrets safe.
It's the one most people grab onto first, yeah. But it's actually a bit more nuanced than just hiding stuff.
How so?
Well, it means restricting access to sensitive information only to authorized personnel, people who have a legitimate need to see it. Ah, okay. So not just hiding it from bad guys, but controlling who within the organization can see it too.
Exactly. Think about a company's really sensitive intellectual property. Maybe a new product design, or some secret sauce algorithm, or their biggest customer list.
Right, stuff competitors would love to get their hands on.
Precisely. If that design leaks, maybe gets stolen by a competitor or ends up on the dark web, the consequences are huge. Massive financial losses, competitive edge, gone, maybe even legal trouble.
Wow. Okay, so it's about controlled disclosure, making sure only the right eyes see it.
You got it. Then there's integrity. This one speaks directly to trustworthiness,
Ruh.
accuracy.
Trustworthiness.
Yeah.
Meaning the data is reliable.
Exactly. It ensures that data stays in its original, unaltered state, that it's accurate, complete, reliable. Think about hospital patient records.
Oh, yeah, critical.
If a prescription dosage gets changed accidentally or, worse, maliciously, the results could be terrible for the patient, life-threatening even.
Or like financial records, changing numbers in a transaction.
Perfect example. Or swapping the recipient account number. If you don't have strong integrity controls, trust in your systems and your data just completely evaporates. It's about making sure the data you're looking at is the data it's supposed to be. No sneaky changes.
How do they even ensure that? Like, technically.
Well, our guide mentions things like checksums and message digests. Think of them like a unique digital fingerprint for a piece of data.
A fingerprint.
Yeah. If even one tiny bit of that data changes, the whole fingerprint changes. It immediately flags that something's wrong, that the integrity might be compromised. It's how your computer knows if a file you downloaded is legit or if it's been messed with.
Ah, clever. Okay, so confidentiality, integrity. What's the A?
Availability. This one might seem simple, maybe even obvious.
Yeah, it just means the system is working, right?
Right. But it's often overlooked until, bam, the system goes down and suddenly nothing works. Availability means reliable, timely access to systems and data when authorized users need it.
Okay, reliable and timely. That timely part seems key.
It really is. Think about a big online retailer on Black Friday.
Oh yeah, peak time.
If that website goes down, even for just an hour, the lost revenue is immediate, huge, potentially millions. Our source specifically mentions that even a 3-day downtime for a site like that would be catastrophic.
Not just lost sales either. Reputation hit, customer trust gone.
Exactly. Stock prices could even tumble. And an accidental data loss or a long system outage. It's not just an annoyance. It's a serious breach of both integrity and availability. It causes ripple effects through the whole organization.
And I guess these three aren't totally separate, are they? Like, if availability goes down, maybe attackers use that chaos.
You hit the nail on the head. They're intrinsically linked. Compromising one pillar, like taking down a system with a DDoS attack to hurt availability, often creates openings. Attackers exploit that chaos to maybe sneak in deeper, trying to compromise confidentiality or integrity while everyone's scrambling. They really do form a holistic defense.
Makes sense. So for you listening, think about how this applies to your own digital life, right?
Definitely. Your online banking needs integrity so your balance is right, your transactions are correct.
Your personal photos, you want confidentiality there. Keep them private unless you choose to share.
And your access to email or work documents. That relies entirely on availability. These three goals, they really underpin everything we do online, whether you're just browsing or you're a security pro.
Okay, so CIA is the foundation. But how do you actually make it happen? You mentioned supporting elements.
Yes, exactly. To actually achieve these goals, to make the CIA triad real, we depend on a set of supporting elements. These are identification, authentication, authorization, accountability, and non-repudiation.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Let's break those down.
Let's. And it's crucial to get these clear because people mix them up all the time. But the precise meanings are vital for strong security. First up, identification.
Identification.
This is simply presenting your credentials, saying who you are. When you type in your username, swipe your badge, put your debit card in the ATM, you're identifying yourself.
Okay, step one, claim an identity. Hi, I'm Bob.
Pretty much. Then comes authentication. This is the prove it step.
Ah, okay. Verification.
Exactly. The system checks the credentials you presented against its records to confirm you really are who you claim to be. So entering your password after your username or your PIN after the debit card goes in, that's authentication.
Got it. So ID is the claim, auth is the proof. Our guide highlights this distinction.
Explicitly, it says, understand the differences between identification, authentication, and authorization. Remember that identification is simply presenting credentials, while authentication is verifying them. It's the difference between saying, I am Jane Doe, and, say, proving it with a fingerprint or a secure token.
Okay, makes sense. ID, then auth.
Right.
What's next? Authorization.
Right. Once you're authenticated, once the system believes you are who you say you are, authorization kicks in. This dictates what actions you're actually allowed to do.
Ah, the permissions part. What can you touch? What can you change?
Exactly. Permissions, rights, privileges, it's all authorization. Just because you're logged in doesn't mean you get the keys to the kingdom. The principle of least privilege is huge here.
Least privilege, meaning only give people the absolute minimum access they need to do their job.
Precisely. No more, no less. And closely related is need to know you need a valid business reason to access specific information. It's about limiting potential damage if an account gets compromised.
So back to the debit card example, card in is ID,
Yeah.
key in is auth.
Right.
And the amount I can withdraw, or maybe only accessing my checking account, not savings, that's authorization.
You've got it. That clarity is essential for designing secure systems. You mentioned least privilege, though, and it sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
But isn't it incredibly hard to manage in a big company?
Yeah.
Roles change, people move.
Yeah.
What's the biggest hurdle?
Oh, that's a really good point. It is a major challenge. I think the biggest hurdle is often just like inertia, convenience, plus the sheer complexity.
Easier to just give broad access.
Sometimes, yeah. From a pure management view, it seems easier up front. But that massively expands your attack surface. Regularly reviewing who has access to what and trimming privileges. It takes time and resources.
I bet so many users, apps, data sources.
And it's all constantly changing, but the cost of not doing it. Having one compromised account suddenly give an attacker access to everything because it had way too many permissions, that cost usually dwarfs the effort of managing privileges properly.
Makes sense. So beyond controlling access, what else was on that list? Accountability.
Right. Accountability. This is about traceability. Being able to trace actions back to a unique user. It ensures people can be held responsible for what they do on a system.
How's that usually done?
Logs. Yeah, mostly through detailed auditing and logging, tying specific actions to unique user IDs. So if an audit log shows someone messed with the database, accountability lets you pinpoint exactly who did it, when, and from where.
Okay. Which is why those shared admin accounts are such a nightmare, right?
Exactly. Our guide points that out-shared accounts make it difficult, if not impossible, to trace the activity back to a single person. It totally breaks accountability.
Gotcha. And the last one was non-repudiation. Sounds serious.
It is. It's a step beyond accountability.
Yeah.
Non-repudiation ensures a user cannot deny they took a specific action.
Cannot deny. How's that different from accountability? Accountability says, we know you did it.
Right. Think of accountability like security camera footage showing you entering a room. Non-repudiation is like, you left a unique, undeniable fingerprint on the door handle while performing the action.
Irrefutable proof.
Exactly. The classic example is a digital signature using a private key. Only your unique private key could have created that signature, so you can't later claim it wasn't me. It binds you irrevocably to the action. Super important for legal stuff, financial transactions.
Wow, okay. So those 5 ID, authorization, accountability, and non-repudiation, they all work together to support the main CIA goals.
Absolutely. They form the foundation. You mess up least privilege, you open huge doors for attackers, you neglect accountability, you can't figure out what happened after a breach. Getting these right is critical.
But understanding the goals and the support structure,
Yeah.
that's just step 1, right? To really manage risk, you need to understand risk itself.
Exactly. Time to dissect the beast.
All right, so we've got the security pillar, CIA, and the things that support them. But protecting stuff isn't just about what you're defending. It's about understanding what you're defending against.
Right. The danger itself.
Exactly. So now we move from the goals to the actual anatomy of risk. We kind of need to dissect its DNA. People often talk about the 4 horsemen of risk:
Okay, sounds ominous. What are they?
threats, vulnerabilities, impact, and likelihood. And our source actually defines risk itself really neatly. It says risk is the likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability, causing an impact to an asset.
Ooh, I like that. Likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability causing an impact. Ties it all together.
It really does. So let's break down each horseman. First, a threat.
Threat. The potential danger.
Yep, a potential danger or event that could cause harm. Could be anything. Natural disaster, fire, flood, whatever.
Or human stuff. Hackers. Mistakes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Unauthorized users, malicious insiders, even just a careless employee clicking the wrong link. Our guide lists examples like destruction of data processing facilities from a power surge or data theft by some hacking group. It's the thing that could cause trouble.
Okay, so threat is the what could happen. What's vulnerability?
Vulnerability is the weakness, the crack in the armor, the unlocked door. It's a weakness in a system or an operation or even a physical facility that a threat can exploit.
So the opening the threat uses.
Exactly. Examples: faulty fire detectors,
Yeah.
lack of proper access controls on a server, maybe using old, outdated encryption.
Just like that.
And here's where it gets interesting. People can have vulnerabilities too.
Like Being too trusting. Clicking on phishing emails.
Precisely. Complacency, lack of training. These human factors can be vulnerabilities that allow a threat, like a phishing attack, to succeed.
Okay, threat exploits vulnerability. Then what? Impact.
Yep, impact. This is the so what part. The degree of harm or damage if the risk actually happens, if the threat successfully exploits the vulnerability.
And that's measured how? Money.
Often, yeah. Tangible stuff like dollars lost from downtime, cost to replace equipment, regulatory fines. But it also includes the intangible stuff, which can be just as bad or worse.
Like reputation.
Damage your reputation, yeah. Significant business disruption, customer trust evaporating. In some critical systems, maybe even loss of life. Our source points out losing a major financial processing system isn't just the cost of fixing the system.
It's the money you lose every day it's down.
Exactly. Plus, maybe customers leave, you get sued. The impact cascades.
Okay, threat, vulnerability, impact. What's the fourth horseman? Likelihood.
Likelihood. This is about how likely, realistically, an event is to occur. What's the chance of it happening?
So, like probability, high, medium, low.
Well, our source makes a careful distinction here. It says, note that we intentionally avoid using the word probability.
Oh, why is that?
Because probability usually implies, hard statistical analysis, quantifiable data, math. Likelihood is often more qualitative.
So, less precise numbers, more like high, medium, low, based on judgment.
Often, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what we reasonably expect might happen based on the info we have. Expert opinions, past incidents, threat intelligence. It's a realistic assessment of certainty.
Got it. And these four things, they all have to connect, right?
Absolutely. And this leads to a really crucial concept our guide hammers home. It says, threats and vulnerabilities are always expressed together as a pair.
Always a pair.
For a given set of circumstances, if you have no threat that could exercise a particular vulnerability or no vulnerability that could be exploited by a particular threat, then you have no definable risk for those particular sets of circumstances.
Whoa, okay. That's fundamental. So you need both. No threat, no risk, even if you have a weakness.
Right. Think about it. You might have an old server, totally unpatched. That's a vulnerability. But if there's literally no known exploit for it, or no hacker group even interested in targeting that specific old system,
then the risk of that vulnerability being exploited by that threat is basically zero.
for those specific circumstances, yeah. Or, conversely, you might have super skilled hackers out there, a threat, but if your systems are buttoned up tight, no weaknesses they can exploit.
Then no risk from that threat succeeding against those systems.
Exactly. It's this dynamic interplay. Security isn't just finding flaws, it's understanding how those flaws line up with actual active threats.
That really changes how you think about it. Okay, so once you understand these pieces, threats, vulnerabilities, impact, likelihood, where do you go next? How does an organization decide what to worry about?
That brings us to the whole idea of risk culture, appetite, and tolerance. How an organization, or even you as an individual, sort of feels about and deals with risk.
Risk culture, like the company's personality towards risk.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's how the organization collectively feels about and deals with risk. And it's hugely shaped by leadership, the tone from the top.
What the bosses value, innovation versus caution.
Exactly. Their business philosophy, past experiences, it all feeds into the culture. A, say, highly regulated bank will likely have a very different, much more cautious risk culture than a bleeding-edge tech startup trying to disrupt everything.
Makes sense. And that culture affects how much they spend on security.
Directly. It influences everything, which leads to risk appetite and risk tolerance.
Okay, appetite and tolerance, what's the difference?
Risk appetite is the big picture. It's the amount and type of risk an organization is willing to accept overall to achieve its goals. Are they bold innovators okay with some bumps, or super cautious prioritizing stability?
So appetite is the general willingness to take risk. What's tolerance then?
Risk tolerance is about the acceptable variation from that appetite. It's the wiggle room.
Wiggle room.
Yeah. So if your appetite is, say, we'll accept a medium level of risk for this new product launch, your tolerance might be, okay, if things get a bit hairy and it edges into high-risk territory briefly, we can handle that, but absolutely not very high or catastrophic. It sets the boundaries around the appetite.
Ah, okay. Appetite is the target level. Tolerance is how much deviation you can stomach.
You got it. And these are critical because they directly drive decisions. How are resources allocated? Do we invest heavily in controls up front, or push forward faster and accept more risk.
High appetite might mean less spent on controls initially, hoping the reward pays off.
Could be. While low appetite means playing it safe, investing heavily in security and compliance from the get-go. Remember that example our guide mentioned? A company choosing to willfully ignore government-mandated control implementation and just accept potential fines.
Yeah, why would they do that?
Because they did the math. They assessed the cost of the fine, maybe factored in the low likelihood of getting caught, and decided it was less than the cost and hassle of actually implementing the control.
Yeah.
That's a deliberate risk acceptance decision driven by their appetite and tolerance.
Wow, that's a gamble.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier how this applies to personal decisions, too.
Absolutely.
But what happens in a company when, say, the official appetite is go fast, innovate, but the actual tolerance for any kind of failure or security hiccup is basically zero? That seems like a conflict.
That's a fantastic question, and yeah, it's a tension you see all the time. When stated appetite clashes with actual tolerance, things get messy.
How so?
You get this disconnect between strategy and what actually happens on the ground. The leadership says, innovate, move fast. But the security or compliance teams, reflecting that low tolerance, put the brakes on everything.
So development teams pushing code get stalled by endless security reviews.
Frustrating. Hugely frustrating. It leads to delays, friction, and sometimes even shadow IT teams just bypassing the official process altogether because it's too slow.
And the flip side, super low appetite, stifling everything.
Yeah, that can make an organization slow, bureaucratic, unable to adapt, and they risk getting left behind by more agile competitors. It's this constant balancing act, needs really clear communication, a shared understanding right from the top down.
Being honest about what you truly value and what you're really prepared to risk losing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we understand the risk components: threat, vulnerability, likelihood, impact, and how a company's culture, its appetite and tolerance shape its approach. Now, the practical part. How do you actually find these things in your own environment? The detective work.
Right. This is where threat assessments and vulnerability assessments come into play. Let's start with threat assessment.
Threat assessment, finding the bad guys and bad things.
Essentially, yeah, it's about developing a comprehensive, categorized list of all the possible threats that could impact a specific asset, or maybe a whole business process, or even the entire organization. Identifying the who and what could cause harm.
And vulnerability assessment, that's finding the weaknesses.
Exactly. It's the meticulous hunt for all the inherent weaknesses. In your systems, your operations, your physical facilities, like scanning for every crack in the foundation, every unlocked window.
Like a top-to-bottom checkup for flaws.
Pretty much. Our guide mentioned something called threat modeling as a really rigorous version of this.
Threat modeling.
Yeah, where you look at every possible threat agent who could attack you, their likely actions, the attack vectors they might use, known vulnerabilities, and then you actually try to simulate the damage they could cause.
Wow, like playing out worst-case scenarios on paper.
Or sometimes even in controlled test environments. It's very thorough. Now, threat assessments, they can be scoped differently.
Scoped how?
Well, our guide shows this scaling process. You can do one for just a single new software system before you deploy it, or for a specific business process, like how you handle payroll. Or you can do a massive one for the entire organization's digital footprint.
And you can focus on different types of threats, too.
Absolutely. You might do one focused purely on technical threats, malware, network attacks, or one focused on physical threats, someone trying to break into the data center, or even environmental threats, like is your server room in a flood zone?
Okay. And the vulnerability assessment, does it stand alone?
It can, but its real value comes when it's part of a bigger risk assessment. Just knowing you have a vulnerability isn't enough.
You need the context, right? Is there actually a threat that could exploit it? What's the potential impact if it does?
Precisely. Without that context, a vulnerability is just an interesting technical fact, not necessarily a risk you need to prioritize.
Makes sense. Our source mentioned breaking down threat agents too, like by intent or skill.
Yeah, that helps prioritize.
Yeah.
You look at their intent, was it accidental or malicious? Their relationship, are they an outsider or a trusted insider gone rogue? Their skill level, are they a script kiddie or a sophisticated nation-state actor?
What are they trying to achieve? What methods do they use?
Exactly. All those characteristics help you understand the threat better. The guide gives an example. A malicious outsider agent using exploit code, threat method, to leverage a software flaw, vulnerability.
Leading to what?
Leading to maybe a buffer overflow and getting unauthorized access. A buffer overflow, for anyone listening, is basically when a program tries to stuff too much data into a temporary memory space, the buffer.
And it spills over?
Yeah, it overflows into adjacent memory, potentially overwriting important stuff, maybe even letting the attacker inject and run their own malicious code.
Yeah.
It's a classic hacking technique to gain control.
Gotcha. And on the vulnerability side, examples could be like not having a proper access control policy.
Yep, that's an administrative weakness.
Mm.
Or using weak encryption that's technical. Or maybe just not having security cameras in a sensitive area of physical gap.
Okay, so these assessments give you the raw ingredients, the threats and the vulnerabilities. Then you build scenarios.
Exactly. You develop risk scenarios. This is where you combine all the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The asset you care about, the threats it faces, the vulnerabilities that could be exploited, and then you map out the potential outcomes. What happens if these things converge?
How do you approach building those scenarios? Where do you start?
Our guide highlights two main ways. First, the top-down approach, also called objective-centered.
Top down, start from the business goals.
Precisely. You start with the organization's big objectives, like we need 99.9999% uptime for our e-commerce site during the holidays. Then you systematically identify threats and vulnerabilities that could specifically jeopardize that objective.
So it's very focused on what matters most to the business. Needs management buy-in.
Definitely needs input from upper management. It's structured, directive, and ensures your risk work is directly tied to business value.
Okay, what's the other approach? Bottom up.
Yep, the bottom-up or general approach. This one's broader. It aims to identify all possible scenarios, casting a really wide net, even if they don't immediately seem linked to a top-level business goal.
Just trying to find any potential problem lurking?
Pretty much. And importantly, both approaches need to consider external factors too.
Like what? The economy? Regulations?
Yeah, new regulations, economic shifts, market trends, and internal factors too. The company's structure, its risk appetite we talked about, budget constraints, even internal politics. All these influence how realistic a scenario is and how likely.
So a recession might make insider threats more likely because employees are under financial stress?
Exactly. That's a factor a purely technical assessment might miss.
And how detailed should these scenarios get?
The guide says you are developing scenarios down to the most practical level of detail possible.
That detail helps you plan your response later.
Absolutely. Yeah. A vague scenario isn't very actionable. The source gives a good, complete example. Threat agent, malicious outsider, threat, exploit code, vulnerability, software flaw, impact, high, likelihood, medium, result, buffer overflow, unauthorized access. See how it connects all the dots.
Yeah, tells a full story. Okay, so you develop all these detailed scenarios. Where do they live? How do you keep track?
They all go into a crucial document, the risk register.
The risk register, the master list.
Exactly. Our guide calls it the master product or document. It reflects all the different scenarios. The factors involve threats, vulnerabilities, assets, likelihood, impact. And critically, it serves as the focal point for responsibility and accountability for managing risk throughout its life cycle.
Responsibility and accountability. So it says who owns each risk.
Yes. And it's not just a static list you make once and file away.
Yeah.
It has to be a dynamic, living document.
By living?
Because threats change. New vulnerabilities pop up. Business goals shift. You patch something. The register needs to reflect the current state of risk and how you're managing it.
So what kind of info is in there, besides the risk description and owner?
Things like the assessed likelihood and impact, what resources are needed to fix it, maybe an estimated cost, target completion dates for mitigation, the current status.
It's like we're working on it or evaluating solutions.
Exactly. The guide has a sample entry like data theft from malicious user likelihood, medium, impact, high, owner, engineering depth, action, needs new DLP system, cost, $10,000, due, Jan 2016 status, assessing different vendors.
DLP, data loss prevention.
Right. Technology to stop sensitive data leaving the network, like a digital guard dog for info.
Okay, so the register tracks everything. It sounds like a really practical tool, especially for big projects.
Definitely. It ensures risks aren't just identified and forgotten. They're actively tracked, managed, someone's accountable, resources are allocated. It turns vague worries into a concrete action plan.
Okay, we've mapped the landscape, found the threats, identified the vulnerabilities, written the what-if stories in the risk register. But just knowing a risk exists isn't quite enough, is it? You need to weigh it, understand its potential punch.
Exactly. How bad is it, really?
Yeah.
How likely is it? This is where we get into risk assessment and analysis techniques. We need to quantify the danger, or at least qualify it, so we can prioritize and decide what to do.
And our source mentioned two main ways to assess. Qualitative and quantitative.
That's right. Quantitative assessment is all about the numbers.
Hard numbers, dollars and cents.
Yep. Concrete, non-subjective numerical values, statistical analysis. You're calculating likelihood and impact using dollar figures, percentages, frequencies, things you can plug into financial models.
What's the big advantage of that?
Precision and justification. It gives you a clear financial bottom line. When you can go to management and say, look, this risk has an expected annual cost of X dollars, but this control will cost Y dollars and reduce that risk significantly, it makes the conversation about security investment much easier. It speaks their language. Return on investment.
Okay, so quantitative is the numbers game. What about qualitative?
Qualitative uses subjective terms, ratings like high, medium, low, or maybe labels like critical, serious, moderate, minor.
Less precise, but maybe faster.
Exactly. It's quicker, more flexible, especially useful when you don't have precise data, or getting that data would be too expensive or time-consuming. Great for initial triage, figuring out which risks need the deeper quantitative dive first.
So most places probably use a mix.
Very often, yes. Start qualitative to get a quick sort, then go quantitative on the big stuff that needs solid financial justification for spending money on controls. Best of both worlds, really. Speed and precision where it counts.
Makes sense. Let's dig into the numbers side a bit more, though. That quantitative part. You mentioned financial metrics?
Yes, two key rules are single loss expectancy, SLE, and annualized loss expectancy, ALE. These are super important for making data-driven decisions about security spending.
Okay, SLE first. Single loss expectancy, the cost of one hit.
Pretty much. It's the financial loss you expect from a single occurrence of a specific threat hitting a specific vulnerability. The formula is actually quite simple. Asset value, AV, times exposure factor, EF.
Asset value times exposure factor. What's exposure factor?
EF is the percentage of the asset's value that will be lost if the threat happens. So if you have a server worth, say, $10,000, that's the AD, and a threat could totally destroy it, meaning 100% loss.
Then the exposure factor is 1.
Right, EF is 1. So the SLE equals $10,000 AV times 1 ES, which is $10,000. That's the cost if that specific bad thing happens just once.
Okay, simple enough for one event, but how often does that event happen? That's where ALE comes in.
Exactly. Annualized loss expectancy, ALE, tells you the expected financial loss from that specific risk over a whole year.
Annualized. Makes sense. How do you calculate that?
Also straightforward. SLE times the annualized rate of occurrence, ARO.
ARO, annualized rate of occurrence. How many times per year it's likely to happen?
You got it. So if our $10,000 SLE event is expected to happen, say, once every 2 years.
Then the ARO is 0.5, half an occurrence per year on average.
Perfect. So the ALE equals $10,000 SLE times 0.5 ARO, which equals $5,000 per year. That's the figure you can use to justify spending on controls. If control costs less than $5,000 a year and significantly reduces that ARO or the SLE, it's likely a good investment.
Okay, that seems powerful. But is it really that simple in the real world? Just AV times EF times ARO?
Ah, good question. And no, not at all. Our guide is very clear that these are simplified examples.
What do they miss?
A lot. That simple calculation doesn't factor in things like, say, losing $1,000 per day in revenue while that server is down.
Right.
Or what if the loss isn't 100%? Maybe the threat only causes 40% damage.
So EF would be 0.4 and the SLE would be lower.
Right, $4,000 instead of $10,000. And it doesn't include other costs either. Asset depreciation, legal fees if data was breached, regulatory fines, damage to reputation, losing customers, the cost of staff time for cleanup and recovery.
Wow. Okay, so the real calculation is way more involved.
Way more complex. These formulas are a great starting point, a framework. But a proper quantitative risk assessment needs to consider all the potential direct and indirect costs and ripple effects.
But even the simple version helps, right? It translates security risk into potential dollars lost.
Absolutely. That's the power. It speaks the language of business. It helps justify security, not just as a cost center, but as protecting the bottom line. It moves security from being a nice-to-have tech thing to a must-have business imperative.
Okay. Beyond the numbers, you mentioned visualizing risk, making it easier to understand.
Yes, sometimes diagrams are much clearer than spreadsheets, especially for talking to people who aren't deep in the technical weeds. Tools like fault tree analysis, event tree analysis, and bow tie analysis.
Fault tree. Sounds like tracing failures.
Exactly. It's a predictive tool. You start with a specific bad outcome, the root event, like firewall failure, and you trace backwards to identify all the possible causes or contributing factors that could lead to it.
So firewall failure might branch back to maybe a configuration error,
Yeah.
or a hardware problem, or maybe you just got overwhelmed.
Precisely. It helps you map out all the potential paths, all the vulnerabilities and threats that could combine to cause that one specific failure. Great for understanding system weaknesses.
Okay, so fault tree looks backward from the problem. What about event tree?
Event tree analysis does the opposite. It starts with an initiating event, the root, and traces forward to map out all the possible consequences or outcomes.
Forward, like if this happens, then these things might follow.
Yep. So maybe the initiating event is break into corporate facility. The branches forward could show a range of outcomes. Maybe minimal loss if they were caught quickly, or maximum loss if they got sensitive data, or even no loss if alarms scare them off immediately. It helps understand the full spectrum of potential impacts from one starting point.
Okay, fault tree for causes, event tree for consequences. What's the bow tie thing? Sounds fancy.
Bow tie analysis cleverly combines both. Imagine a bow tie shape.
Okay.
The knot in the middle is the main negative event, the risk you're worried about. The left side of the bow tie shows all the causes leading up to it, like a fault tree. The right side shows all the potential consequences flowing from it, like an event tree.
Ah, okay. Causes on one side, consequences on the other, event in the middle.
Exactly. And crucially, it often adds the controls too. Preventative controls are shown on the left, acting on the causes to stop the event. Mitigating or corrective controls are on the right, acting on the consequences to lessen the impact.
Wow, that sounds really comprehensive. A whole risk story in one picture.
It is. It gives this holistic view. Causes, event, consequences, and the controls trying to manage it all. Super useful for communication.
I can see how showing a bow tie diagram to executives would be way more effective than just talking technical details.
Absolutely. These visual tools make complex risks much more tangible and understandable. They're not just for security planning either. They can really help with disaster recovery, business continuity, understanding all the potential paths a crisis could take, and where you can intervene.
Okay, so we've assessed, we've quantified, we've visualized. Now, finally, we have to decide what to do. How do we respond?
Exactly. Time to talk strategy.
All right, we've sized up the enemy, so to speak. We've assessed the risks, maybe put some numbers on them, even drawn pictures. Now comes the big decision. What are we actually going to do about these risks?
This is where the strategy comes in risk response. And our source lays out 4 main options organizations typically consider: acceptance, avoidance, mitigation, and sharing.
4 options. Let's start with acceptance. That sounds passive, like doing nothing.
It can seem that way, but it's crucial to understand it's meant to be an active, conscious decision. It's not ignorance.
Ah, okay. So you know the risk is there, and you deliberately choose to live with it.
Exactly. You choose to assume either the inherent risk, the risk before any controls, or the residual risk, what's left over after controls are applied. You basically decide not to take further action to reduce it. The guide uses a funny example. Intentionally driving in the carpool lane alone.
Why?
Because you've decided the convenience outweighs the potential cost of the ticket. You accept the risk of getting caught and fined.
Okay, I get it. And in a business context?
A company might accept the risk of fines for not implementing some specific, maybe very expensive government control. If they've calculated the fine is likely small or unlikely to happen, and much less than the cost of compliance.
They might just roll the dice and accept it, a calculated business decision.
Precisely. Often made at very senior levels. It's not burying your head in the sand. It's an informed choice.
Okay, acceptance. What's next? Avoidance. That sounds more active.
It is. Risk avoidance means eliminating the risk entirely by simply not doing the risky thing.
Just don't do it.
Yep. If that new cloud service seems too risky for your sensitive data, maybe you just don't adopt it. Stick with your on-premise systems. If a potential new project has a massive downside and high chance of failure, maybe you just scrap the project.
It's the most definitive way to deal with a risk, I guess. Just remove the source.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it often comes with a cost. Maybe you miss out on a big opportunity, or you limit your strategic options.
Right. Okay, acceptance avoidance. What's mitigation?
Risk mitigation, or sometimes called risk reduction. This is the most common response by far.
Doing something to make it less bad.
Exactly. It involves implementing controls or countermeasures to lower either the likelihood of the risk happening or the impact if it does happen.
Like installing firewalls
Yeah.
or training employees.
Perfect examples. Encrypting data, using strong passwords, doing vulnerability scanning, security awareness training, all mitigation efforts. You're actively trying to make the risk less likely or less damaging. Most of your security budget usually goes here.
Makes sense. That leaves sharing. Risk sharing. Or transfer.
Right. Risk sharing or risk transfer. This is about shifting some of the risk, usually the financial impact, onto a third party.
Like insurance. That's the classic example.
Right, absolutely. You pay a premium, and the insurance company takes on the financial burden if something bad happens, like a fire or a data breach. Another common way is outsourcing.
Outsourcing, like hiring another company to handle IT or accounting?
Exactly. You transfer the operational risk of running that function to them.
Right.
Maybe you outsource your data storage to a cloud provider. But here's the massive caveat.
Uh-oh. There's always a catch.
There usually is. Our source is really emphatic about this. The organization is transferring only risk, not responsibility.
Wait, you transfer the risk but not the responsibility? How does that work?
It means the original organization almost always retains final accountability and responsibility for functions and services outsourced to a third party.
So if my outsourced cloud provider gets breached and loses my customer data,
Your company is still ultimately responsible to your customers, to the regulators, to your stakeholders.
Right.
You can't just point the finger and say it was them. You hired them. The buck still stops with you.
wow, that's huge. So you can share the burden but not the ultimate accountability.
You got it. It's a critical distinction.
These four options, accept, avoid, mitigate, share time. They make a lot of sense. And thinking about it, you probably use them in personal life too, right?
All the time. Avoiding that sketchy investment. Accepting the tiny risk of crossing the street.
Mhm.
Mitigating health risks by eating well. Transferring risk with car insurance.
Yeah.
It's the same core strategies.
Okay, so these are the strategies. How do you actually implement them, especially mitigation? Through controls.
Exactly. Controls are the how, the countermeasures. Our guide defines them simply as measures implemented to ensure that processes are performed to a certain standard, degree, or depth.
Measures to make sure things are done right.
Yep. They directly tackle those vulnerabilities or deficiencies we found earlier, and they're what actually reduces the likelihood or impact of a risk event. They are the tangible actions you take based on your chosen risk response strategy.
And controls come in different flavors, right? Different types.
They do. It helps to categorize them. First, you can categorize them by type.
Okay, like what?
Administrative or managerial controls. These are your policies, procedures, standards, guidelines. Take acceptable use policies, data handling procedures, security awareness training programs. They set the rules of the road.
Got it. Rules and training. What else?
Technical or logical controls. These are the hardware and software things that enforce the rules. Firewalls, encryption, antivirus software, intrusion detection systems, multi-factor authentication, the digital guards.
Okay, technical. And the last type, physical.
Physical or operational controls. These are the tangible things you can see and touch. Locks on doors, security guards, fences, CCTV cameras, fire suppression systems, biometric scanners, even those man-trap doors you sometimes see at secure entrances. Protecting the actual physical space and equipment.
Admin, technical, physical, makes sense. But you can also categorize them by what they do, their function.
Exactly. This describes their purpose in the security strategy.
Like stopping bad things.
That's preventative controls. Their goal is to stop an unwanted event from happening in the first place. Firewalls blocking bad traffic, strong passwords keeping people out.
Okay, preventative. What if something gets through anyway?
Then you need detective controls. These identify that an unwanted event has happened or is in progress. Intrusion detection system alerts, security logs showing failed logins, maybe a motion sensor tripping. They raise the alarm.
Alarm raised. Then what? Fix it.
That's where corrective or remedial controls come in. They fix the problem or repair the damage after an incident. Restoring data from a backup after ransomware, patching a vulnerability that was exploited, maybe disciplinary action for policy violation.
Okay. Prevent, detect. Correct. Are there others?
Yep. Deterrent controls. These aim to discourage potential attackers by making an attack seem harder or riskier. Think warning, premises under surveillance signs, visible security patrols, even just the known presence of strong security measures.
Making the bad guys think twice.
Right. Then there are compensating controls. These are used when a primary control is missing or can't be implemented effectively. They make up for a deficiency elsewhere. Maybe you have an old legacy system you can't patch.
So you add extra monitoring around it. Or stricter access rules.
Exactly. It compensates for the inherent weakness you can't directly fix. And finally, recovery controls. These help restore systems and data to normal operation after a disaster or major incident. Things like disaster recovery plans, backup, and restore procedures.
Getting back to business after things go really wrong, wow, that's a lot of types and functions.
It is. And what's interesting is that a single control can often serve multiple functions.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, think about encryption. It's primarily preventative, keeps data confidential, but it also helps with integrity if the encrypted data is tampered with. It won't decrypt properly, so you detect the change.
Ah, okay. Or backups. They prevent permanent data loss.
Right, preventative. But the act of restoring from the backup after data loss, that's a recovery control. This multifunction nature makes designing your control set both challenging and efficient if you do it right.
Which brings us to, how do you design effective controls? It's not just about picking randomly from that list, right?
Definitely not. It requires thoughtful application, guided by some key principles to make sure they actually work well together.
What are those principles?
First, effectiveness. Does the control actually do what it's supposed to do? Does it fulfill its intended security function? If not, you have a control gap. This is job one.
Makes sense. Does it work? What else?
Efficiency. How does the control fit into the environment? What's the cost, not just to buy, but to operate and maintain? Does it play nice with other systems? Is it overly complex? Does it need lots of staff time? And effective control might be horribly inefficient.
Like a super secure process that grinds business to a halt. Bad balance.
Exactly. You need that balance between security and usability, cost, and benefit. Then there's economy of use.
Economy of use. Getting more bang for your buck.
Precisely. Designing controls so that one control protects multiple assets or performs multiple security functions. Avoid those super specialized, expensive, single-purpose controls if you can.
Like using one fancy security appliance that does firewall, IDS, and web filtering instead of 3 separate boxes.
That's a perfect example. Or using VLANs on one big switch instead of buying lots of small switches. Saves money, power, management effort.
Yeah.
Get more protection from fewer well-chosen controls.
Smart. Effectiveness, efficiency, economy of use. Anything else?
One more, and is arguably the most critical. Redundancy, usually talked about as defense in depth.
Defense in depth. Layers, right, like an onion. Or a castle.
Exactly like a castle. Multiple walls, moat, guards. It means using multiple, layered, often diverse controls so that if one control fails or is bypassed, others are still there to provide protection.
Why is that so important? Can't you just have one really good control?
Because, as our guide bluntly states, there is no such thing as a perfect control. Every single control can potentially fail or be circumvented. Defense in depth is your safety net.
So having antivirus on the servers and on the laptops, plus network security, plus email scanning.
Yes. Each layer might catch something the others miss. If malware gets past the network firewall, maybe the endpoint antivirus catches it. If that fails, maybe user training prevents the employee from clicking the malicious link in the first place. It's about building resilience through multiple overlapping layers.
That makes a lot of sense. No silver bullets, just layers. Thinking about that economy of use principle, how much does that drive decisions in big companies when they're buying security tech?
Hugely. It's often why you see organizations opting for integrated security platforms or suites from a single vendor, rather than buying best-of-breed point solutions for every little thing. Easier management, potentially lower total cost, better integration. It promises economy of use.
And why is testing controls after you put them in so crucial? Not just assuming they work.
Because theory and practice can be very different. A control that looks great on paper might perform terribly in your specific environment. Maybe it conflicts with other software. Maybe it creates performance bottlenecks. Maybe users find ways around it immediately. You have to test to ensure they're actually effective and efficient in the real world. Validate those layers are holding up.
Okay, so we strategized. We've picked our responses, maybe accept some risk, avoid others, mitigate the big ones with layered controls designed using those SMART principles. We've implemented everything.
Yeah.
Phew, done now. Can we relax?
If only. No, this brings us to perhaps the most ongoing part. Control and risk monitoring. It never really stops.
Never stops, why not?
Because the world doesn't stop changing. Our guide really hammers this home. Continuous monitoring is essential. The threat landscape is constantly shifting. New attacks, new malware variants appear daily.
New vulnerabilities get discovered in software all the time, too.
Exactly. And your own business changes new systems, new processes, new priorities. Your security posture isn't static. It has to be continually reassessed and adapted.
So it's not like a checkup you do once a year.
Definitely not. It's more like constantly having your finger on the pulse. Sure, you might have formal audits or reauthorizations periodically, maybe after big changes or on an annual schedule, but continuous monitoring is about what happens between those major checks.
Keeping an eye on things day to day.
Yep. It's proactive. It helps you spot problems or emerging threats sooner rather than later, as the guide puts it, before a minor issue blows up into a major crisis. It's about staying ahead, or at least not falling too far behind.
Okay, continuous monitoring is key. But what exactly are we monitoring? What are we looking for?
Now that's a critical question, and it leads to a really important distinction, one that often gets fuzzy but is vital for good risk management. The difference between key performance indicators, KPIs, and key risk indicators, KRIs.
KPIs versus KRIs. Okay, break that down. What are KPIs?
Key performance indicators measure how well your controls are performing. They tell you about effectiveness, usually looking backwards or at the current state.
Like metrics on how the controls are doing their job.
Exactly. How often did the firewall block bad stuff last month? What percentage of our servers have all their critical patches applied right now? How quickly are we resolving security tickets? These measure performance of your security activities.
And our guide says they should be smart, specific, measurable.
Attainable, relevant, and timely. Yeah. Good KPIs track how well you're executing your security plan. The source gives examples like percentage of operating system vulnerabilities patched within 30 days.
Yeah.
That measures your patching performance. Or percentage of systems that did annual disaster recovery testing measures the effectiveness of your planning efforts. They look at past or current success.
Okay, so KPIs measure control performance. How are KRIs different? Key risk indicators.
Key risk indicators are fundamentally different because they aim to predict current and future risk. They're forward-looking.
Predictive, like crystal balls.
Well, maybe not that predictive. But they act as early warning alarms. They're linked to specific risks you're worried about, and they signal when that risk might be increasing or crossing a threshold into unacceptable territory.
So while a KPI tells me my patching is 95% compliant, which is good performance,
Right.
a KRI might tell me we're seeing a huge spike in attempts to exploit that specific unpatched 5% vulnerability.
Exactly. The KPI looks good, but the KRI is screaming, "Danger, Will Robinson." It's warning you about an emerging threat or a rising risk level that your current good performance might not be enough to handle soon.
Okay. KPIs measure how well we're doing things now. KRIs warn us about what might be coming.
You nailed it. The guide describes KRIs as highly probable indicators designed to accurately predict important levels of risk based on defined thresholds. Examples could be that sharp increase in failed login attempts you mentioned, or maybe a sudden surge in network traffic going to a country you don't normally do business with, or maybe an increase in phishing emails getting past filters. These are signs that the risk environment is changing.
And the source warns about just relying on logs.
Yeah, it cautions against the trap of thinking that logs are the end-all and be-all of metrics generation, because logs tell you what happened that got logged. But what about the stuff you don't know, the sophisticated attack that bypassed your logging?
You simply don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. KRI guys try to give you those subtle early warnings, looking for patterns and deviations that might indicate trouble brewing, even if your basic performance KPIs look okay.
Okay, let me try an analogy. My car's dashboard, the speedometer showing my current speed, or the fuel gauge. Those are like KPIs, right? Performance metrics.
I like the analogy, yeah. Tells you how things are right now.
But the check engine light coming on, or the tire pressure warning, those are KRIs. Early warnings of a potential problem, predicting future trouble if I ignore them.
Perfect analogy. That's exactly the difference. You need both to drive safely. You need KPIs to know if you're operating correctly now, and KRIs to warn you about emerging dangers down the road.
Which is why continuous monitoring, using both KPIs and KRIs, is so vital. It's not about drowning in data.
No, our guide warns about getting too much data from too many sources. That just leads to paralysis.
It's about focusing on the right indicators, the ones that give you actionable insights into how your risks are changing and whether your defenses are keeping up. It lets you adapt proactively.
Couldn't have said it better myself. #tag/taggage outro.
Wow. What a deep dive that was. We really covered a lot of ground, didn't we?
We certainly did. From the absolute basics to some pretty sophisticated concepts.
We started with those core security goals: confidentiality, integrity, availability, the CIA triad, and the pillars supporting them, like identification, authentication, authorization.
Accountability and non-repudiation. Yeah, the building blocks.
Then we dissected risk itself, threats, vulnerabilities, likelihood, impact, and that key idea. You need a threat-vulnerability pair for risk to even exist in a given context.
And how an organization's culture, its appetite and tolerance, shapes its whole approach to dealing with those risks.
We looked at the practical side, threat and vulnerability assessments, building detailed risk scenarios, and tracking it all in that living document, the risk register.
Moved into quantifying risk with SLE and ALE, putting dollar figures on potential losses while still valuing qualitative gut checks, and visualizing complexity with fault trees, event trees, bow ties.
Then the strategic responses. Accept, avoid, mitigate, or share the risk. And the tools for mitigation, controls admin, technical, physical.
And categorized by function: preventative, detective, corrective, deterrent, compensating, recovery. Plus those key design principles like effectiveness, efficiency, economy of use, and especially defense in depth layers.
And finally, circling back to the constant vigilance of continuous monitoring. Understanding the crucial difference between KPIs measuring past performance and KRIs, those vital early warning signs of future trouble.
It's quite a journey through the risk management lifecycle.
It really is. And even though we pulled this from a guide aimed at certification pros, the core ideas aren't just for them, are they?
Not at all. This is really a mental model, a framework for thinking critically that applies way beyond IT security.
Whether you're making big business decisions, managing a project, even just trying to protect your own personal digital life, understanding risk, what it's made of, how to measure it, how to respond to it, that's just an essential skill today.
It helps you move from feeling kind of overwhelmed by all the potential bad things out there
Yeah, the information overload.
to being proactively well-informed, having a structured way to think about and manage uncertainty.
So here's something to maybe chew on for everyone listening. Think about a system or process in your own life that you really depend on.
Could be anything: your personal finances maybe, your family's schedule, planning a big trip, a hobby project you're invested in.
How could applying some of these principles help you manage the risks in that context? Identifying threats and vulnerabilities, assessing impact and likelihood, thinking about your own defense in depth.
And maybe ask yourself,
Yeah.
what risks are you actively accepting in your daily life, perhaps without even consciously thinking about it? And are you actually comfortable with that level of risk once you shine a light on it?
And that difference between KPIs and KRIs, are you just looking at how things have been going, or are you actively scanning the horizon for those early warnings, those signs that things might be about to change?
It's a shift in perspective, really. Moving from just reacting to being more prepared, more resilient in a world that's always going to have unknowns.
A powerful framework indeed. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.